Knefe is a street food, falafel is a street food, shawarma is a street food, manouche is a street
Balila
food.
and hummus.
Full of colors, freshness.
My favorite smash burger is the...
I couldn't have more than a bite.
You have to ask yourself, if you want to open a restaurant, why am I opening this restaurant? What for?
You need to have a story.
Yeah, I just don't like it. It's a matter of taste at the end of the day.
Beyond you can imagine, a 24-course meal.
Chinese, authentic, by a Lebanese guy.
Welcome to a new episode of Food Unscripted. It's unscripted, no notes, no preparation, and it's the way it is. 38 minutes in which we're going to discuss one subject every time, the whole season. After visiting the Dubai, why Dubai, food destination, and lots of interesting things. Welcome my friend, my dear friend, Hani.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not sure, it's so unscripted that I'm not sure how to start and where to start. Bedouin Foodie in the Emirates for the last 14 years, and you've been places, you've discovered places. You've been kind of hidden in a way or another, and now is the big boom and
Coming on the scene.
Coming on the scene.
Yeah.
Today we're going to discuss Levantine cuisine.
Okay.
Lebanese, Syrian, Jordanian, if it counts as Levantine, probably all the way up to Cyprus, which we forget. I can give you lots of things about Cyprus, which I visited several times, all the way up to Turkey, without forgetting definitely Palestine. What do you think of Levantine cuisine?
Well, it's definitely very close to my heart. At home, we eat Palestinian and Syrian food. So it's going to be, I don't know much about Lebanese food. Besides, mazza and things like that. So it's what I grew up eating. So it's my favorite food, obviously. I think it's very rich, very healthy. I believe that we can say that it's the Mediterranean diet. Is a part of it is the Levantine cuisine. My personal favorite of all of them is the Syrian one. And we can discuss that and more.
So let's remind us, mom is Syrian Palestinian.
Mom is half and half.
She cooks at home.
And yes, she cooks at home. She cooks at home with the help of a chef.
So the discussion started when we had that discussion that says, okay, who created what? Who did hummus? Who created hummus?
Yeah.
Who made shawarma, etc.? And what is Levantine cuisine? We wanted to debate Syrian versus Lebanese, and then we said, okay, wait, no, let's call it Levantine.
Yes.
And go all across. What are the updates that happen? Who does meza differently than others? Different names, wara anab, yabra, dolma, and so on.
Yeah.
So where shall we start? So I will start by Levantine cuisine is a cuisine that is based on the Mediterranean diet, that it has an influence of the Mediterranean Sea and all the mountains that surround it.
Yes.
It is a cuisine that embraces the four seasons, lots of vegetables. I would always say it's close to 70% naturally vegetarian.
Yes.
It's balanced. It's based on sharing, lots of colors, lots of flavors, and balancedly or adequately spiced without having a certain intensity on something and the other. So in comparison to the Asian cuisine, there is spicy food in it, there are spices in it, but balanced. There is acidity, but balanced. There is lemon, but balanced. And that cuisine is comfort food. It's definitely comforting, and you can have it every single day, all year, without feeling okay, I've had enough of rice, I've had enough of eating raw fish, I've had enough of having burgers. But you can eat Levantine cuisine every single day. Do you think it's because we have been brought up eating it, or everybody feels the same?
I believe it's a combination of both. Once people try it, people who don't know it try it, they definitely will agree with you on what you just said. It's very healthy. It's very good for you. It's a lot of vegetables. Very easy to be a vegetarian in our part of the world. Most of the food is actually vegetarian and vegan. So that's definitely a plus for the cuisine.
I've been to many Lebanese restaurants around the world, and Syrian restaurants and Palestinian restaurants, which have probably up to 60 to 70% of their clients that are not from the Mediterranean, that are not from our part of the region. And I always ask the question why. Is because they feel it's healthy, they feel it's generous, they feel it's not fatty, it's not trans fat fried, it just feels good. And I've been to the last restaurant I've been to is called Fadi's in Houston. Fadi's has created that long Lebanese buffet of great offerings. I've been there for like 2 or 3 hours and not one Arab entered the place for that period. And they all come in, have a tray in hand, the amazing, beautiful buffet of home food, lots of colors, super eye candy and appetizing, and everybody enjoys it.
Yes, it's definitely having its moment now, Levantine cuisine, especially in the United States. But it came to London and Paris many years ago, and the locals, the French and the British, have started to eat it, and it became like a regular meal once a week, twice a week. The popularity of hummus helps. It's literally in every shop, every corner shop in the world now. You can find hummus. So it's becoming mainstream. It's becoming more and more popular. I believe Instagram also helped. It's visually beautiful. A lot of green in it, a lot of red, a lot of tomatoes. It's a beautiful cuisine.
What do you think? Who created what? Who created hummus? Who created shawarma? Who do you think of the 4 or 5 countries we mentioned has created it?
Okay, so I personally will always go with the Syrian. It's going to be Syria against Lebanon, but I believe that, well, hummus, I did a research on hummus. The first written recipe of hummus is in an Egyptian cookbook from I don't know how many years ago. So Egyptian people tell you they invented hummus, but it's definitely an Arab dish because hummus is the Arabic word for chickpea. So anything that doesn't have chickpea in it can't be called hummus. So we have this avocado dip that they call hummus. It's not hummus. Chocolate dip that they call chocolate hummus. If it doesn't have chickpea in it, it's not hummus. So I can't tell you who created it, but I can tell you my personal preference. And this is one rare occasion where I'll prefer the Lebanese version over the Syrian version. And specifically, it's because I find the Lebanese one has less garlic, more smooth, and more of a refined taste, as opposed to the Syrian one, which is thicker and a bit stronger on the garlic. Do you agree with me on that one? Or?
I do agree on that.
Especially with the garlic.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hummus in the Lebanese version does not have garlic, should not have garlic. Garlic in the hummus is a big no.
Not even a little bit.
Zero is a big no.
The Syrian one cannot be made without garlic.
Hummus in our culture, I won't say which one is better, even though the Lebanese is better. Anyway,
I agree with you on
4
this.
ingredients.
Yeah.
And to be able to be a good chef, you need to balance the 4 ingredients. So you need to use the best tahini that shall not be bitter. You need to use the best hummus and know if you're going to peel it or not.
That's it.
This is very important.
Yeah.
So many do not peel it.
Lebanese peel it, right?
Yes, and you need to know how because it's very tricky.
Yeah.
Fresh lemon versus citric acid. Yes, no, why, what. And this is also very tricky. Fresh lemon or lemon in the fridge or citric acid. And why sometimes in a restaurant you need to put a little bit of citric acid because it becomes too watery. Salt, definitely salt. Olive oil, of course.
Yeah.
And the most important part or tricky part which few know about is ice. And ice makes it balanced. Ice makes it creamy. Ice makes it look like mayonnaise. Ice makes it white. So sometimes you see a yellow hummus versus a white hummus and say, okay, what did they do? So lots of small tricks. So a little bit of that lemon and citric acid or not. Olive oil and what is the color of olive oil so it doesn't go to green. And ice or no ice and all of this play a big role in making the perfect hummus. So when you put garlic and considering that garlic has an empowered flavor and an empowering taste, it will cover on all the other ingredients. So if you're not very skilled professional chef, you would add that garlic and what would you eat? Garlic. What would you feel? Garlic, it feels like tomb.
Definitely the Syrian one is more yellow and you could definitely taste the garlic. So it all depends what you grew up eating and what you're used to, at the end of the day. In our house, generally, every day we will have a salad. So it's usually fattoush or tabbouleh, my mom's 2 favorites. And we always have a rice dish. And we have a yakhne, but we don't call it yakhne.
What do you call it?
I don't know what we call
That word you told me about last time. Let me tell you that story.
Yeah.
One, don't judge me on it. My favorite dish was bazella and little carrots.
Yes.
But the canned ones.
Oh.
So when I met my wife and said,
Oh.
please, can you do me bazella canned? Said,
Yeah.
wait, stop on the canned thing. I'll cook it for you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, but the way they do the little carrots and they shape them like a small thing. Usually in homes we dice them.
It's diced, absolutely.
But the way the carrots are, I always loved probably a scout thing, the bazella alab. Canned bazellas. On another note, did you know that rice is not part of our culture? So in Levantine culture, we always used to eat burghul
Yes.
and freekeh. What is freekeh? Freekeh is green roasted wheat,
Which is a superfood.
which is a superfood that has 7 times more nutrient than
Yes.
quinoa, but unfortunately we didn't know how to market it.
And very prevalent in Palestinian cuisine.
Yes.
More than Syrian.
So it's green wheat.
Yes.
Pay attention to that green thing. It can come colored sometimes. So if you want to know if you're having the real freekeh or you're having a fake freekeh, put freekeh in a glass of water and put water over it. In the next 10 minutes, if water remains water, it's a real green, fresh freekeh that is smoked or roasted in a way that has that smokiness, but it's green wheat.
Yeah.
If your water turns green, it's fake freekeh that comes from...
Wow.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Learned
And
something
this
new.
is what justifies the price. So usually freekeh is expensive because you're taking the wheat which is still green and you didn't leave it to age, turning it into burghul or turning it into flour. And then you get that freekeh that is probably $1 the bag and say, wow, this is good price.
Do you know if there's an English name for freekeh? I don't know.
Not
But
sure.
It's
Not
like
sure.
it's like a super.
This is why we call it
But
green
it's used
wheat.
in Egyptian. They stuff pigeons with it. Hamam bil freek. It's in Syrian and Palestinian. It's also used as a stuffing. You know how they in the West sometimes they make turkey with stuffing or whatever. It's used as a stuffing also.
So freekeh is harder to cook. It takes probably up to 3 hours. So you need to cook the wheat. The beauty of freekeh is that it absorbs the juices. So you enjoy them. It explodes under the teeth, and it's super good for your health. Unfortunately, rice came in late, and when rice came in, automatically it became something very easy to use. It's not part of the original culture, but when it came in, probably around the 1920s, 1930s. Everybody turned to rice, and we use less and less wheat. We still use burghul, even though less, only in Tabbouleh, in a famous dish which I love is called burghul banadura.
Yes.
But burghul, that staple Middle Eastern Levantine. What is burghul? Burghul is wheat that goes through a long process of soaking, drying, roasting, cracking, and then you have that cracked wheat, which you soak in water again, and it takes volume and absorbs the juice.
And the burghul, for people who don't know, is one of the main ingredients of tabbouleh.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Saudi Arabia, we were talking about rice. So we have in our homes, we have to have a rice dish every day. And the day we have Saudi food is rice with a lamb. And most of the time when we do a whole lamb, it's when we have the whole family is coming over or other. So our rice, I remember distinctly when I was younger, we used to have Egyptian rice, which is the bigger, fatter grain. And then more recently, with the times, the basmati rice started coming in, which is a thin, longer grained rice. And today I would think that the basmati is more popular, but there are certain dishes that you can only have with the or the American one, they call it, the American rice, Big Ben, whatever. So so rice definitely.
My favorite rice dish made with the Egyptian one is riz ajij. So riz ajij is definitely my ultimate favorite. They compete, riz ajij and wara anab, in my top favorite. Riz ajij, I'm a big fan of al dente. Al dente is undercooked pasta. Al dente is undercooked rice. I'm all in on the al dente. I do not like things that are super cooked. Even my meat is red, etc. Except in riz ajij. In riz ajij, I like the rice to be way too overcooked. Soaked in the chicken juices. Lots of ghee, minced meat on the side.
Lots of black pepper, right?
Lots of black
pepper. The rice
pepper.
comes with like a darker color.
The dark color you can get from two things, or from burning or deep frying onions, and then use it to color the rice, or using lots of pepper. So usually when you have that brown rice, that all brown rice, that brown comes from from the onions. So burned onions that turn into black.
Yeah.
And then you put them in the
And it's got pieces of chicken in it,
Yeah.
and then there's a broth or a sauce that you put on
some
top.
people call it stuffed lamb, and some people call it ras adjej. What does chicken do with lamb? Wait, in our Lebanon culture, it's minced meat, which is the lamb or the beef, and then rice, which usually the same rice and minced meat you can stuff in a lamb. But when it becomes with chicken, it's riz ala djej, so the chicken needs to be down. But but riz adjej in Arabic is rice over the chicken, but how we eat it is rice, minced meat, and chicken on top. So that chicken was added, even though in the Arab culture it's stuffed lamb, so it's more on the meat side.
Yeah. We call it ruz b'djaj. Ruz b'djaj. Ruz b'djaj.
Ruz
In
b'djaj.
Syrian. Ruz b'djaj. Djaj.
Habits, I would say family, but this is how all of Lebanon probably grew up way before burgers were a trend, where a burger is a piece of patty that you would go to your butcher and get. That butcher of yours, 99%, would say, I'm the man, خليه علي. I'm the guy.
Yeah.
And it would be meat, a little bit of fat, breadcrumbs, egg yolk, Worcestershire sauce, salt and pepper. Oh my goodness. And we had this all our childhood.
Yeah.
And then that patty was smashed or pressed, I would say, pressed. And then sometimes you put it in the freezer, out of the freezer. Fast forward, you go home, grandma comes in, and grandma wanted to press it so much because she thought that pressing the burger would make it better, or removing all the juices from it, or probably make it safe to eat. And this is how you cook a burger.
It's a precursor to the smash burger.
Yeah. Fast forward, 10 years later, 15 years later, burgers have becoming a trend. We understand food.
Yeah.
We became foodies. I started understanding what burgers are, and said, what a damn childhood we passed. And how burgers were understood wrong.
Completely.
So a burger, let's start by what is a burger? A burger is meat and beef, and that's it.
Yeah.
The choice of beef is yours. The choice of cow is yours. Angus, Wagyu, normal, Australian, Brazilian. This is your choice.
Yes.
Probably.
But there is a
better-
science to it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Brisket, chuck, etc.
Different cuts of meat.
Yes, we'll talk about it in a bit. And 20 to 30 and sometimes up to 40% of fat.
Yeah. So the meat to fat ratio, the ratio should be 80-20 at the least. They tell you. And like you said, sometimes it goes up to it. That's why Wagyu burger is a very high fat burger.
How do you choose your meat?
I like to ask for 80-20. 80-20 or 25% being fat.
Okay. Depending on the quality of meat, if it's fatty or not.
Yes, depending on the quality of meat, if it's fatty or not. And in general, it's pointless to get really high quality meat for a burger. You know, you go to the butcher, you tell them I want a burger mix. They call it chuck in the States,
Yeah.
whatever. And so 80-20, 75-25, like that. The next most important thing is the meat to bun ratio. So for me, one of the most, if I had to pick one most important part of the burger, the bun. For me, the bun makes a huge difference for me. So I don't like bready, too much bread. I like something that squishes. So that's why I love the potato bun. I like the brioche bun, but brioche bun is tricky because the meat to bun ratio has to be right. Otherwise, it doesn't fit right. I would say the game changer for me was when Shake Shack started their burger and they introduced the potato bun.
Martins.
The Martin's potato bun. That was like a game changer. I'll never forget the first time I had it. The first time I ever had a burger, I remember, I was living in Saudi Arabia in the 70s. It was when Wimpy opened. That was the first fast food operator to enter the Saudi market from overseas. It was Wimpy. I remember having the burger and they put an egg on top. So I remember that. I also remember my first McDonald's cheeseburger.
Meat versus fat, 80-20, but it has a science to it.
Yes.
So you need to understand how fatty your meat is and how clean your meat is. So taking a piece of meat or beef and putting it into the grinder is not enough, because sometimes it still has some muscles, some tendons, whatever, tendons,
yes.
etc. So it's very important to
Sometimes
clean
it has to go a couple
very
of times through the...
Yes.
Yeah.
So big size or small size, 1 time or 2 times, 3 times sometimes,
Yeah.
and this is very important. This is what makes a beef better than the other, or a burger better than the other,
Yeah.
because when that meat when these particles will stick one to the next, there will be a little bit of air between them. So how does it crumble under the teeth?
Yes.
How much was it cooked? Is it well stuck one
Yes.
on top of the other, or it will crumble in all pieces? So these are little details are very important. And then the quality of fat. It's not like any fat. It's the best fat out there. Some would like to play around it and put lamb fat, and some would put 100% cow fat. And what kind of fat? Is it that inside fat or the additions that are here and there? So it's very important to focus on what is your meat, what kind of meat you want, and then the thickness, small or big. It's not only about listening to 100 grams. Okay, that 100 grams, how big is that 100 grams? Is it this size or this size or this size?
Yeah.
And then an average is 120, I would say, if it's a good piece of beef. That needs to be probably around half a centimeter plus or minus, less than a centimeter. And most importantly, now we'll talk about the cooking part, never touch it on the grill. Ever press it, never, except if it is smashed. We'll talk about it as well.
Yeah, well, there are two different grills, right? The thick burger will be with the flame, access to the flame. The smash burger will be on a flat iron smash. And the rise of the smash burger solved a lot of problems. That's why it's so popular. It works perfect for delivery, because you don't need to ask, do you want it well done, medium? They're all done well done. And actually, it's a science effect. It's called the Maillard effect. It sounds like a French name. Maybe it's Maillard, whatever. It's a Maillard effect. And that's the effect of when you smash the burger and it sears and it caramelizes. And you see that on the smash burger. It becomes almost smooth.
It feels caramelized, but with no sugar. So
Yeah,
we call
exactly.
it caramelization of the beef, but no sugar is involved.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So smashing it has two schools. It's or thick and smashed, so you would see the meat, or you would see the transparency and the holes between the meat when it's way
It becomes like crunchy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you would need to put 2, 3, 4, or 5 pieces into the burger to reach that point of
Absolutely.
thickness.
When I have a smash burger, always minimum a double patty. Otherwise, it's just, sometimes they're paper thin, really.
So talking about the proportions, which you mentioned beautifully well before, is I always say it's a 20-20-20 percentage. So it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So I would love to have my upper patty that is 1/3, middle thing or filling is 1/3, and the lower is 1/3. So whenever you look at it, it needs to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in most of the time, you have a very big piece of bread or bun, and then a little bit of beef in the middle. You end up eating bread.
Absolutely, and it's dry, and it's like it's incredible how some people make their burgers like that, and it's really easy to make a good burger if you just follow these simple rules.
You need to understand the science of it. So why the butter or not? Buttering the bun or not? And what does the butter do?
Yes.
Fresh bun or not? Frozen or not? Thick tomatoes or thin tomatoes? So every single one of them would probably need 5 hours to discuss, but I hope we won't forget anything. In a burger, it's all about the proportions. And if you have a fresh bun, it will just melt, it will just be soft like a pillow.
Yes.
But whenever it's dry, and you would definitely feel that it's dry probably 1 day or 2 or 3 days later, this is why you put the butter. So the butter has 2 purposes. The first purpose is to give a little crust.
Yes.
A little crust. But most importantly, and few people know about that, is that putting the butter and covering it with the bun, that butter will evaporate inside the bun, tendering it.
I did not know that.
So that piece of butter you put, and whenever you close it and you put the bun on it, it will just evaporate into it. It will crisp it from the below, and then tenderize all the upper bun, and then you can eat it. The success of a restaurant is location. So we should start by that.
So we can start by that, but before that, I wanna just say something. You have to ask yourself, if you want to open a restaurant, why am I opening this restaurant? What for, right? There are people who are going to open it for the passion of doing it. A chef wants to have a restaurant, or somebody wants to do it as a business to make money, and so on and so forth. A lot of the ones that fail are opened by chefs without a partner to do the business part. It's such a tricky business that the business of operating a restaurant has to be done by a professional who has experience and knows what they're doing. Chefs know food. They're not businessmen. They don't know about the other part. So that's a major reason why a lot of restaurants fail. So the ones that really work and are very successful, you'll find that it's a team. It's a chef driven, but there's also the manager who is also a lot of times a partner in the business.
It's the food and someone handling the P&L.
The P&L, food costs, HR, you're dealing with chefs are notorious for having egos and being very difficult people to deal with. So imagine a kitchen has it has one main chef, but they're all the same. So you have to deal with egos, you have to deal with, which are HR issues, people coming, going, not showing up, purchases, food costs we mentioned, theft, IT, and now there's a new thing, which is, someone has to deal with social media, Instagram, marketing, dealing with people like you and me, bloggers and influencers. This is a full-time job.
And Hani, you didn't even reach the point where you started talking about good food and taste of food. And all of this is 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
And food, we didn't even start talking about that.
We didn't even start talking about the food. So let's start with what you mentioned, location. It's the most talked about one.
So location is an investment.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's expensive, but yet you'll get the return. So some people would say, would you open a Dubai mall? Wow, I cannot afford it. It's probably $1 million or 2 or 3 or 4. But if you have the million, let's put the number as $1 million.
Yeah.
If you have the number, you'll do 3 million.
Yeah.
Because Dubai Mall is the most as an example, is the most visited location in the world. If you are on Sheikh Zayed or if you are near the Eiffel Tower or and so on. So another location, when you say, I have an amazing location for a very, very good price, can you make people reach there? Yeah. Yes, if you create not only a restaurant, but a destination. So a destination is a restaurant that people will travel for, will drive for. Is it the chef? Is it the decor? Is it the story? Is it whatever? So you need to create a destination. So this is a location where people would drive for you. It's more expensive, etc., etc. Because you'll have less people.
Yeah.
Or location in the most visited location,
which has a lot of traffic.
Exactly, exactly. So lots of traffic. Yeah. So if you pay X, you'll definitely do a 2x. If you pay X divided by 10, you'll have to do X divided by 5 or whatsoever.
Yes. So a good way to start is, you look at your concept. What's my restaurant? For example, I'm a pizza restaurant. Okay, do I need traffic or am I a destination? Which is exactly what you just mentioned. If you need traffic, then you need to be in a mall or a high traffic area like Barsha Heights in Dubai, or I don't know in Lebanon where that would be. But so that determining your location should be based on what your concept, what you're selling. Are people going to go out of their way to come to me? Mm-hmm. Accessibility, parking, availability of parking. There's a ramen place here I wanted to go to. Every time I go, I can't find parking. So I asked myself, why would anybody open a restaurant in a place where there's no parking? These things can make or break a restaurant.
There's a point I wanted to start with as well, and probably the first time I'm going to discuss it in this matter. There's something I call the curse of the Michelin Guide Association. Let me explain. When a chef who decided to be a chef is someone who usually is in the kitchen, cooking food, handling a certain staff that is 4, 10, probably 20 people to the maximum. And then one day the Michelin guide comes to him and say, you're awarded the star. We'll talk about the restaurant versus chef later on, but that chef will put a star on his chest and become the star. And that star, who has been in the kitchen for the last decade or so, comes out in the open, becomes an entrepreneur overnight, becomes a celebrity overnight, becomes on TV overnight, and becomes someone who decided to be in the kitchen to cook, going out to deal with people and take pictures and so on. This is why I call it a curse, because this person was never trained to be an entrepreneur and yet to open a restaurant, probably one of the failures, was never trained to handle people or to discuss people or talk with people and so on. So chefs come in awarded 50 best Michelin and other things, and they wake up to a fact of, okay, today everybody knows me, I'm a celebrity. Mm-hmm. What do I do? And I believe lots of, a big part of the failure of the chefs, their character, and you started by saying they have their ego, etc., etc.
They're notoriously difficult people.
Exactly. And comes the award to emphasize on it.
Yes, absolutely.
So the chef, so the curse of the Michelin is something we need to discuss later on, probably in an episode of itself. So I'll describe it differently because I had lots of friends and connections that I believe are living that wrong life without even knowing they are. So back to the restaurant.
Let me give you some examples.
Yeah.
Let's look at big, successful restaurant companies. Some of the biggest ones in the world. Off the top of my head, there's a company in the United States called Major Food Group. Major Food Group owns Carbone, but they also own many brands. They're huge. What's their secret? Their secret is there's a chef, Mario Carbone, and there's somebody, two guys running the business. Jeff Zalaznik and another person, I forgot his name. Together, they form a formidable team. One person deals with the food and all that, then there's somebody dealing with the business part. Another good example of that is Nobu, the Nobu Group. Empire, hotels, everything. Again, there's the chef, but there's another person in the back. I think his name is Mayor, and he's the one who's running the company.
Yeah.
So that's something that's important to identify and explain.
So this is one. Two, location or location
we
one,
discussed
this is
that.
two.
Okay.
And then comes the restaurant.
Yes.
Is it the food? Is it the location? Is it the
design?
service? Is it the design?
Yeah.
Lots of things.
Yes.
And sometimes we reach a point where you look at the restaurant and you say, the design is average, but smaller, fully loaded.
Yeah.
And then you go to another restaurant and you say, the food is average, and then it's fully loaded and packed.
Yeah.
What's the secret? Do we have that answer of what really is the secret of success for a restaurant?
You know, I don't think it's a blueprint. You can't just tick them off. It is a combination of everything, definitely. Design is very important. Today, restaurants are spending 10, 20 million dirhams on fit out. So it's a huge investment, depending obviously on the kind of concept you want. But I believe design is important. I believe obviously the food is important. Service, ambiance, lighting, music. It's a combination of everything. But I recently did a poll on my Instagram where I asked my foodie followers, what's the most important determining factor when you pick a restaurant? If you had to pick one, is it the food? Is it the location? Ease of access, parking, what is it? At the end of the day, the majority said it's the food. So you have to start out with the good food. Usually I'm a purist. I like authentic things. I do not like fusion things. Having said that, there are a few examples of fusion that I like.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate.
Okay.
So in a world where everything has evolved,
Yeah.
2024, iPhone, Samsung, AI, intelligence, and lots of things evolved, why shall we still eat the same authentic old recipes and not follow evolution?
You know, sometimes it's just not good. You know what I'm saying? I don't want potato chips on my sushi. When I have sushi, I want traditional Japanese sushi. Look, some people may like sushi with mayonnaise on top and potato chips, which is, they have that here in Dubai. I just don't like it. It's a matter of taste at the end of the day.
It's a thin line between what are we teaching our kids. It's a very thin line between is evolution good or bad?
Yes.
It's a thin line between did the word invent everything? Did the word discover everything? And is hummus still as good as it is and nothing needs to be added to it?
Yeah.
Or is a manouche a good manouche? Or za'atar is made to be eaten alone or not? Is sushi simply about raw fish and the quality of fish and doesn't have to have mayonnaise or whatever with it?
Yeah.
So that evolution of things has taken us to places where do we want to really go there or not? It's a thin line. I'm not saying I'm against fusion or not. Taking a step back and understanding what is food. And food is connects human to culture. Does food do men or men do food?
Yes. You said it there, how it connects to culture. I love to take the example of sushi as an example. Sushi is passed down through generations. Sometimes the father to the son. It's an art in Japan. It's not just rice and raw fish. There's a lot that goes into it. And it's something that I've come to respect. It's a traditional thing. It's a very Japanese thing. I often think about what is the sushi master in Tokyo who spent 20 years perfecting his art think of you know, somebody coming and putting mayonnaise and potato chips and all these weird things on it and calling it sushi. It's kind of not fair. An easy way for us, you and me, to relate to that is when we see our beloved hummus being played with. I went the other day in a food market in Los Angeles, and I found chocolate hummus. I think to myself, I'm like, you know, please, it's not right. It's a similar feeling you get. So.
Exactly, like the comparison is very straightforward. Real sushi, which I would say 90% of the world doesn't understand what it is.
Does not understand.
And lots of people around us just eat sushi thinking this is it.
Yeah.
And what sushi is, or Japanese cuisine is, in the country where there are the highest level of 3-star Michelin, and some of them are street food, is only about the quality of rice, the temperature of rice,
Yes.
the amount of wasabi, the perfection and quality of fish,
How you slice it.
and no soy sauce needed, no
Yes.
salt needed, and all of this.
Yes.
And then fast forward, it evolved to what Californian sushi is, and it's dramatic. Cucumber and carrots and mayonnaise and fried the tempura and stuff.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, where the rice has become sweet, when stickiness is unbearable.
Yes.
So sushi is not what the fast food sushi you're delivering home is, and definitely sushi is not something that can be delivered anyway, because it can kill you, and it lowers the temperature along the way.
Yeah.
So back to what sushi is one piece with 2 fingers, no chopsticks needed.
You eat it with your hands.
Exactly.
There's even a right way of eating sushi. This is another episode.
Yes.
Right?
So back then, fast forward to what we
Yeah.
understand and our culture. When I first traveled to the States and saw what happened to our culture, I would say the food culture, I was so shocked, so depressed, so sad. And I started saying, please stop playing with my culture. Please stop playing with my culture. Please stop informing Canadians and Americans and showing the world that this is how we eat. We do not eat this way.
We do not.
We do not eat a shawarma.
We don't
with
have a
chips.
falafel sandwich this big.
We do not have a falafel this way. We do not have a shawarma put on the grill and blackened.
Yeah.
We don't have a gyro that is fat and only fat, that looks like plastic on a shelf. Guys, what the hell did you do to my culture? All the onions are this size. Parsley are American parsley, not the Italian ones. They feel like kale, and they scratch your throat. They're putting sriracha sauce everywhere. They're mixing tahini and sriracha and hummus and everything in between.
Yeah.
And I believe, I always said, allow me to give it as is, Chipotle has changed the way people eat around the world. Taking Mexican, which is a purest cuisine that really looks like a Levantine cuisine, and I believe we're cousins, we'll talk about that in a minute, Chipotle has put everything in a wrap, mixed rice and beans together, choose the sauce you want, any vegetables in it, for you to fill up your stomach. Coming your way with lots of positivity, happiness, knowledge, enjoyment, and it is unscripted. Nothing has been prepared, nothing has been talked about before. It's a 38 minutes discussion about anything you want to know about, and any question you might have an unanswered answer to. Anyway, Bedouin Foodie, No Garlic No Onions on Instagram.